Um, so there's a couple things that I wanted to show you with this project. One is that I linked here in the resources. So creating an Express app, just like creating a React app, is something that you as developers will probably be doing quite often. And just because we have Create React App, which is that tool that builds the scaffolding for a React app, there is a similar version for Express. And that one is called the Express Generator. I'm going to be using this one to show you what I wanted to show you about like file uploads, basically. And hopefully that should take us about an hour. Then you can start working in your team, reviewing the project, getting started with your Trello board, basically. So what I'm gonna do here is, let me create all this stuff. Questions? Yeah. I'm not streaming, but I'm recording and I'm gonna upload it after. Yeah. So I'm gonna open Terminal and I'm gonna go to like my folder, just do core, this is unit 4, and maybe here, just like I'm gonna create a folder here called multer, let's do like group project, React group project. Right, so we have a folder in group project. And in this folder, which is currently empty, let's see if we have enough soon. Can people see it? Or my head is like right in the way. So in here, then in this folder, I'm going to have 2 apps basically. I'm going to have a server, an Express server, and a React app that then we connect just through network requests. The React app is going to make network requests to your backend, to your Express server. So here I want to create a React app, so I'm going to do create React app. I'm going to call it like front end. You can call it front end, anything you want. Sometimes client and server is also good names. Oops, I forgot that create React app now has to be run with npx, create React app. I'm going to open another tab here while that is going on, which takes some time. In this other tab, in here, while Create React App is working, I'm going to initialize the scaffolding for an Express app with the Express generator, which is run with npx again, npx Express generator. And I pass this option, no view. If you pass it or don't pass it, doesn't really matter. The no view, like the Express generator by default will give you some like templating language for you to like build an app. I don't know if like, do you remember like Sharar's and Janesh's project, the last one that was like with EJS, that was sort of like JavaScript inside of the HTML in these files. That is what is known as a templating language, which is sort of the old way of doing things, where your app is just one thing, server and front end. The server is sending HTML. So by default, we don't want any view engine, so you do no view, and then I'm going to have this created in a folder called backend. And that is going to run the Express generator, and it creates a folder with all this stuff, with these files. And then if I do ls here, now we have two folders, backend and frontend. Client and server are also good names. Now if I go to the backend, if I do ls, I see that I have the basic files for an Express app. I have an app.js, and I have a routes folder. So let's open this. Actually, I'm gonna open the entire folder with VS Code. And let me too. Yes. Dash generator. No view. No view and backend. This can be anything. This is the folder name. Also, you can visit the Express Generator documentation for more details on all the options, etc. So if we go, I'm gonna go here to VS Code. I have a front-end folder and a back-end folder. And in back-end, I have app, which this shouldn't like surprise us. They're importing Express, something called the cookie parser, the logger, Morgan. They're importing two routes, the index router and or routers and the user's router. Create an app, set up the logger, set up the JSON middleware for parsing JSON bodies, for parsing URL encoded bodies, and they use any route that's going to come to slash is going to go to index router. Any route that comes to slash users was going to go to the users router, and then they export the app. One difference from here is that we are not using the port here. We're not setting the port just yet here. The port is being set in this folder called bin and www. www is a file, a JavaScript file, and in here we in fact don't need to like touch this file much. We're gonna need to make a small change, but here this is a file that is sort of doing some setup for us. What it's doing is setting the port, and this is sort of like so that you can specify the port as an environment variable if you want to, or you could do, if there is not an environment, just here use 3000, and then they set the port here. They set the port to listen on that port, and they set some handlers for like when errors happen, for logging that error and to display it to the user. But there's not a lot that we need to do here. Just the main part is that this folder, this www inside of bin is doing some setup and setting the port. Now in here, if you go to the package JSON in the backend, we can see that the start script, which is when we do npm start, is going to run node www. It's not running app, it's running www because that's sort of like the entry point for our app now. And so as we go, let me open the terminal here. Let's go to the package JSON. The package JSON is that we created with the Express generator, has these dependencies. Express, of course, debug. This is like for showing errors. Morgan for logging, and cookie parser. This one we could go without this one because we're not using cookies just yet. And that's it. So I'm gonna go to the backend, or actually before we move on, any questions about what we have done so far? We have scaffolding for these two apps, basically. Cool. So yes.
What's the second thing on the port? Can you go back, please?
This one?
Yeah.
This?
Yeah, process error.
Yeah, this is, for the most part, we don't have to care about this, but this is if I want, once you run your app like on Heroku, for instance, Heroku won't let you set the port. They give you a specific port for you to use. And sometimes you don't even know what port that is. But they say, oh, the port is going to be available through an environment variable. So just grab it from the environment. And what that means is, for running, you do something like export port equal, I don't know, let's say it's 4,000. This will set, let's see if this works. This set in my computer an environment variable called port. And if I do echo port, maybe I will get 3,000, 4,000, 4,000. So it's even like your computer has sort of like this sort of, you can think of it as the global scope sort of, where you can define variables, and that's known as the environment. And if you can see the environment, you do print env, and you have a bunch of variables that your computer is set up for you, that are stuff like, for instance, one of the most common ones, you might have seen this one, is path. This path variable, so yeah, it has a bunch of directories. This is the variable that says where binaries are going to be looked up for you to execute. So if I have like, if we have code, for instance, code, like, or when I type code period, it knows where to find code because it's going to look through these directories in the path. That's one of like a common environment variable. It's going to look through it, and if you don't have it in any of these directories, then it's going to say not found, command not found, something like that. Yeah, like other variables like home, etc. Here I see port now 4,000. So right now, if I run the app, if I run my server right now, it's going to run on port 4,000. It's not going to run on 3,000. It's going to run on 4,000 because this is saying try to get it from the port, from the environment. If this is falsy, do we remember about like the truth table? This is this or 3,000. In this case, and the OR operator, when we have an OR, and if it sees that the first thing is a truthy value, then it just stops checking the rest. In this case, this will be a truthy value. This will be 4,000. Truthy, just use that, and don't even check this one. So sort of, that's that. Cool. So something that we're gonna need to change here is we're gonna need to change this port because the React app runs on port 3,000 as well. So something we could do here, now that you know about like environment variables, is every time we run, make sure that we execute export port and whatever number we want. But because that's sort of cumbersome, we could just come here and change this. I'm gonna change it to 3001. We can't have two apps running on the same port in our computers. We're running two servers basically. The Express server and the React server. And we can't have both running on the same one. So this the only change that we need to make here is the changing the port to 3001 or whatever you want. Cool, so once that's done, now we need to install the dependencies of our backend, which Express Generator doesn't do for us. Create React app installs the dependencies as well, but not Express Generator. So for installing that, you could do npm I for install, and that's going to install whatever it sees in our package JSON, basically. Wait, no, this is the backend. Yes, it's installing these dependencies is already finished because there are so few. Cool. So any questions before we move on? Joy.
What does Morgan do then?
Yes, Morgan allows us to log the incoming requests so that we get, once we're running, is gonna say like a get request arrived to this endpoint. We're gonna see. I'm sure you have seen it already, but we're gonna see it. Other questions, Cameron?
For the front end, he was saying because the ports are running at the same time, they have the same number, you have to change them, right? So where do you see the port for the front end?
Oh, so
Or is it already assumed to be 3,000?
yeah, it's assumed to be 3,000 because so React is running a server that and it doesn't really need to run that server. But the creators of Create React app decided to have it use a server to provide the hot reloading thing that is so nice. Mobile developers don't have hot reload, which they really envy us for that because they don't have. You make a change and it reloads, but once you save, they don't have that. They have to compile the app and send it to the phone every time or on an emulator. But that hot reloading is a server that Create React app gives us. Which in fact is actually a Webpack server. That server is running on the port 3000, and we can't change it easily. We could change it, but not easily. So we just leave that one running on 3000, and the Express server we're just running in another port. Mm-hmm. I think it's another question. Douglas, maybe?
Just double checking that. So when you're in the backend folder, you have to run npm I to put in any dependencies that are not automatically loaded in through
the Express generator.
The Express generator,
yes, the Express generator just doesn't install the dependencies for you. You have to install them, and that's what npm I is. Npm I is just sort of a shortcut for install. Cool. So let's run this. Let's do npm start. And we can see that then that ran node and the bin www file, which is our entry point. So right now we have our server running. Our server is running, and if I go to the browser and I go http://localhost 3001, and I go enter, it doesn't work.
You need to put a slash or a...
Are you only running the backend or front end backend?
I'm only running the backend for now.
Did you import 4,000?
Oh, right. So since I have the environment variable, it's picking the environment variable. It's not picking 4,000. So if I do 4,000 now, it should probably work. And though I'm gonna get rid of that one and just set it. It's picking up the port from the environment, not from the one that we changed on www. So I'm gonna have to. I think it's just exiting and opening the terminal again will clear the environment. Yeah. So let's start it so that wait, I have to go to the backend. npm start. Now let's go back to 30,000. 3001. And we have our Express server. Right now, this is like the only thing that is showing, sort of saying that it's working. It has a route/users that the Create React app or the Express generator gives us, which just replies with this text. That's it. That's what you get with the Express generator. Yes?
Can you explain why you went to 4,000 and then back to 3,001?
Yes, that is because, as I said here, this line here in www is going to try to pick the port number from the environment, which I had defined when I said export port 4,000.
Oh, you had said it.
I had said it here in my terminal before.
Okay.
This line was setting the port in the environment, but I didn't want to do that anymore. So it's going to pick it from there if it's there, or it's going to use 31,000. Yeah. Other questions? Cool. So we have our server running. As we go here to routes, then we have like the index which is this one that just shows you that like, hello, welcome to Express basically. And the users is that res.send respond with a resource. Here, for instance, we can just then reply with some JSON data. Right. Let's say like if we have some users, we'll do like JSON. I'm just gonna hard code them here for now. Like name. This is right. So some sort of hard-coded users here. Now replying with JSON. Let's do npm start. And as I go to 3001/users, now I get my JSON basically. Right, nothing really surprising in here. Yes, sorry.
You cannot find module cookie bars.
Did you do npm install in the backend? Inside of the backend folder, you need to do npm I or npm install. Just that, and that was gonna install the dependencies. That's likely why you're getting that error. Cool. And in this case, like in your case, this array, like these users are not gonna be hard coded here. They're probably gonna come from the database with PG promise that now you know how to use. Cool. So that's that. We can have as many routers as we want, as many routes as we want. What else? I think. The next thing that you probably want to do, and I want to do it right now, is so two things. One, Joy, this is Morgan. Morgan is the one that is logging this stuff. If you don't have Morgan, you don't get this nice thing, which is saying what kind of request you got to what endpoint and what was the response status. If I go to, like, let's look at this here. You'll see if I go to just slash, I get that. If I go to /left, I get 404. If I get users again, so Morgan is the one that is logging this thing, which is good for for us the developers when we're debugging what route is not working and to what endpoint did it come, stuff like that. Yeah. Yes. When you. It's not automatically refreshing. That's my next point, which is what do we want to use for that? NodeMon. Right. So if I make a change right now, it's not going to pick up the changes. So let's install NodeMon. Let's do npm I for install NodeMon. And instead of, this is something I like to do. Actually, I did this wrong. Oftentimes, I think what we did was install NodeMon globally. Let me remove npm, remove NodeMon. I don't remember NodeMon. Yeah. You see that it installed NodeMon. So something that we probably were doing was like installing NodeMon globally and then just calling NodeMon app.js or whatever. And here I don't want to install it globally, even though that's still a plausible option. What I want to do, I want to install it as development dependency because my project doesn't really need NodeMon to work. It can work without NodeMon, but it's a dependency for when I'm developing the app. So for installing something as a development dependency, what you do is npm install -d capital D NodeMon. And this is going to create another key here that you're going to see pop up here called dev dependencies, and it says NodeMon. So NodeMon is not really a dependency for our project. It's a development dependency that is sort of a nice tool whenever I'm developing my app. So I like to do that, and the other thing that I like to do is in here, And this is mostly relevant once we are like deploying our apps to Heroku. Heroku, for instance, will run the command that you specify under start. So you're gonna sort of, Heroku gives you a computer basically that you can push your code to, and Heroku is gonna look at your package.json, and to run your app is gonna do basically npm start, and that's gonna run whatever you have in the start script, which in this case is Node, which is what we want. Now to run NodeMon, what I like to do, I don't like to change the start. I would like to add another one here. And this is not really necessary, but it's just sort of nice. I like to do it start dev, something like this. And then here I'm going to say NodeMon bin www. So what this allows me to do then is, if I want to start my app, I just need to call npm run, in this case, start dev. This is going to run this script, which is just going to call NodeMon for the www file. I run that, and NodeMon starts. My app is running there.
What was the command you used to install dev?
Install -d, capital D, space NodeMon. That will install NodeMon as a development dependency.
Lowercase d, uppercase d,
Uppercase D.
or just simply uppercase d? I'm sorry.
Let me show you here again.
Oh, I see.
Yes.
Do you still need to do it if you have NodeMon installed globally?
If you have NodeMon installed globally, you don't have to. This, like the development dependencies, is just sort of like a nice thing for, if somebody's gonna pick up your project, see some of the tools that you use. Cool. So that's that. You could, if you have it globally, you can skip all this. Cool. So now to run my project. I think I closed it. To run the app, we just run npm run start dev. Cool. So we have the app running. I think I can close this since I don't. My server is running, is responding with the stuff the basic stuff, which is good. Now let's start thinking about like how to upload the files. So let's see. I think we should probably do it first on the front end. Let's do sort of the front end part first. So let's just sort of forget about the backend for a second. I'm gonna kill the backend, and I'm gonna go to the front end. Now I'm thinking of doing the backend first. I think we should do the backend first now, because then we can test the front end once we have the backend set. Yeah, let's do the backend first, and we can test it with like Postman, for instance, and then we build the front end in React. npm. Let's start there. Oops. Cool. Okay, so for handling file uploads, what we were doing was, well, we haven't done, but the way in which we have been sending data to the server is in JSON format, right? And if we want to send a file, we can't send it as JSON, because a file is just binary data. It's not in the JSON format. So we can't send it as JSON. and we have to handle that. So for handling, so there are multiple, let's go here, form and type. So there are multiple sort of like encoding types for forms. I think they're, yeah, here. These are the main ones. Yeah, these are the main ones. When we're sending data in JSON format, we're sending like text plain. The server just looks at that because we have the express.json that is looking to see if the text that came is JSON. And if it did it, then it just parses that JSON. For the most part, we don't have to like think about this, what format the data is going on. But now we need to, because we're gonna send binary data that is not JSON or text, it's just binary. And that we're gonna need to use this part, multi-part form data. We're gonna need to send it in this sort of format, in this, I think these are known as encoded, yeah, in this encoded format. And we need to set up our server to understand this encoding format. So just like when we were doing like JSON for our server to understand like JSON, we use the body parser that now we realize that it comes with Express. There is a module called multer that is the one that is going to let us parse those multi-part form data. This one, multer. You may want to check the documentation later on. But we're going to send that data in this format. So we're going to need to use multer. So let's go back to our app. I'm going to kill this. Now, npm install multer in here in my backend. This is something that we're going to, that we only need to do like in the backend. In the front end, once we're using axios, axios is going to check if your actions, axios checks if what kind of data you're sending, and axios will pick the right one. Once it sees that you're trying to send a file, that you're not trying to send JSON, axios is going to pick the right one. So that's multer. Now we need to set up multer. So for setting up multer, we go to the app. First thing that we want to do is import it. I'm just going to import it here. Oh, something that I like to change sometimes is like all this var, I change it to const, because the Express generator is kind of old school, I guess. But you don't have to. So we import multer, and let's actually look at the documentation because I don't remember these by heart. Okay, actually, even before we do this one, I wanted to show you something. I'm gonna run the app, pm run start dev, and I want to show you what this line is doing. What this line is doing. So this is express.static is a middleware, just like any other. And what this middleware is doing is serving static files. So once we set up this, we can access files that are inside of our server directory, static files like style sheets, like images, and I wanted to show you how that works because this is sort of like a component that was gonna let us upload the images, and not so much uploading the images, but also just accessing them once they have been uploaded. So here, this express.static, what it's doing is just saying any try to look at files that are trying to be accessed through the URL in the public folder. So what that means is, let's look at this. So if we go back here, now Express generator also brought up this file called public. You see this file, this folder called public, and it has some subfolders: images, JavaScript, and style sheets. Now here, for instance, and so here is like this public folder is just generally used for putting static files that are not going to change. And in here we have like style sheet, we have index.html. We could get rid of this. This index.html, for instance, is the file that you see when you just go to the main route, like the welcome message, the welcome to Express, which we can completely avoid. Is that a question? Yeah. Yep.
Did you use multer already?
No, we just imported it, but I wanted to dive into what this file is doing, what this line. So this is gonna let us access files that are in our server. This is gonna be part of when we're uploading images. So I wanna show you, for instance, here, if I go to my server, let's say I wanna access this index.css or even this index.html, and I have my server running. I go to the browser and I say localhost 3001 / index.html, I think, and we get that file. This is not our app, sort of like this is just accessing that file. And if I go to /stylesheets / what is it called? Style.css, I'm able to access the CSS file that is in my backend folder. Note here that in the URL, I don't need to specify /public. That's an important bit to note. I don't need to say /public / style sheets. I just need to say style sheets, right? Yeah.
So what are the two arguments for joining?
Oh, this is yeah. This is saying, this is doing the resolving the full path for where the folder is. This dir name variable is a global variable that all JavaScript has. All JavaScript that is running on Node in the browser, we don't have dir name. But this dir name is basically a variable that all JavaScript files get, which is a string, which is the path of this file. So like here, app.js, the dir name variable is, whatever we are on, like, right, this path. So what that is doing, path.join is joining that with public, and then it resolves to the location, the path for the public folder. That's the whole thing. So what that is saying is, I want to statically serve the files that are in this folder, so that anyone that types in that URL can access those files. Note that we can't access any of the other folders. This is common. You don't want just everyone to access all the files, right? Like my routes files. We can't access them from the browser with the URL because we didn't set out that in here. In fact, we don't want to set out that like that.
Yeah,
Because then the people will be able to access the code and see if we have any bugs, basically.
Okay.
Right.
That would be an entry point. Someone who wants to enter the computer would change public for routes.
Right. And then files static assets that your app, that your website, that your server may need or may want to serve will be put like in the public folder, and you could change this name to whatever you want. So just for a demonstration here, in images, I'm gonna download an image and put it in that folder, and then I'm gonna access it from the browser. So let's go to like hello. Let's download an image here. Oh, I think I have one. Oh, but I forgot where I put it. Maybe this one. Save image as. Now this folder, this image, I'm going to put in, I think we put it in core. Core unit 4, React group project, backend, public, images. I'm gonna just name it to hello. Just hello, and it's a PNG image. Cool. So now in here we have images. This is the images folder is where you're gonna upload your images to, right? And this is why I'm showing you this, because from here is how you're gonna be able to access them. So I have an image in the public folder, images folder. So if I want to access that through my server, I could say 3001 images hello.png. Oh, I don't have the server running, maybe? Let's see. Yeah, the server is not running. npm, I'll start that. Let's run that, and I get the image. This is the server serving my image. And we can see here, we can see here how like with Morgan is logging what request came. Morgan is logging the request that came to /images/ hello.png. Cool. Any questions up until this point about like the static thing? Any files that you put into the public folder will be accessible to the internet, basically. Right? Like this is how this image came from, something like that. This image is sitting in some hard drive in some computer that is connected to the internet, and a web server is serving that file. Right? So in short, basically anything that we put in the public image, in the public folder, because we have set up this middleware, is going to be publicly available. So to this image folder, to this images folder, is the one that we're going to be uploading our images to. I guess like another note here is you could save images in your database directly. That's possible. I've never really done it, but I know that it's possible. And I was trying to think about like why you may not want to put them on the database. And I think what I came up with is that the database is often used just for information that you want sort of indexed and that you want to search through, right? But in an image, once you like save the image directly to the database, that's going to be binary data. That's data that only an image program can understand, basically. So you can't really search through the image. What are you going to search for? And what you probably want is the name or the URL of the image, so in the database. Cool. Any questions up to that point? Cool. So we just need to now the step that we need to do next is configure multer to upload the files to this folder, to the images folder. And we could do that like very simply if we do something like, oftentimes it's used as another variable here called upload equal multer. So multer is a function, and to this function we need to pass in an object with some options. And here we need to pass something called destination. And the destination is to where do you want to upload your files, basically. And I'm going to say I want to upload them to public images. So this is sort of like the multer setup. And then we could use then upload as a middleware down here, as sort of as one of our routes. So that's there. Now I'm gonna add another route here. I'm gonna say, this could be like in its own route. I'm just gonna use it here. I'm gonna say any post request, because remember that when we're sending data to the server, we use post. I'm gonna say to /upload. Any request that comes to /upload, I wanna handle it with upload that single, and we're gonna get to the next upload that single thing, and here we get res next. And so remember that we can have, oftentimes we have had just like one middleware, which is this one, basically. This one. This is how we have been doing it. But we could put any middleware there. And that's why we're gonna use that's why we're putting here this upload that single. This upload is coming from the multer, and here single, we need to pass in some options as well, I think. Let me look back at the documentation. Single, and then just the field name. So here is, you can upload like one file, or you can upload many files at once. That's your choice. And you have probably seen when you're like changing your profile photo on a website, it only lets you pick one, right? But if you're like attaching files to your email, you can select multiple. That's what upload that single is for. Like upload that single is to only allow one image upload, and upload that array is to allow more files. In this case, we're just gonna use one. And this avatar, in this case, this is the field name. This is how to get like the field name that contains our data. We're gonna send a form. Ultimately, with React, we're gonna send a form to our server, and there is a field that we're gonna name, and that field is gonna carry our image, basically. In here, in this case, I'm just gonna call it image. It could be anything, but in this case, we're just gonna call it image. Now here, if we have this correctly, any request that comes to /upload is gonna be sent to upload single. If everything goes well here, then it gets moved onto our route handler, basically. For now, let's just do console.log. I'm gonna console log rec.file. Now, rec.file is a property that we get thanks to multer, right? Let's console log rec.file. Let's console log also like rec.body. And let me do this here so that we can tell them apart. We're just gonna do these things. Cool. So then here we have set up multer, the base. Let's see if this works. So I'm gonna open Postman. Make sure that my server is running. Yes, it's running. I'm just gonna create a new, close this, create a new request. It's gonna be a post request. HTTP ://localhost 30,001 in this case /upload. So do you remember that here when we were like sending requests, just testing our servers, we'll go to body and we'll pick X form URL encoded, or you'll sometimes pick like raw, and here we'll just type the JSON here. Now what we're gonna do is form data. Form data is for like the file upload and binary data upload. Here, here I'm gonna pick file, and I think I need to give this a name. This is the name, this is the field name that I'm gonna call image. Note that this one, oh why is, this is full screen. This is that field name that I picked here. This has to match. If it doesn't match, just multer will throw an error saying, oh, I couldn't find the image because you didn't tell me where it was, basically. So this is the field name that is going to contain the image. And that's it. So let's do that and then select image. Let's select an image. Select files. From here, I'm just going to go to like pictures, pick one of these. This, then open. So I have my image here on Postman, and let's just send this. We send it, and if we did everything correctly, we got here. Oh, I forgot to respond, but we got here rec file. And this rec file that we console log here, this rec file is an object representing the file. It has some information about the file that just came in as an image where it was put. It has like the original name and a new file name that multer is given. And then if we go to, let's cancel this here. If we go to our folder and we go to images, we now have two files. We have the hello that we put there initially. Now we have this one, 92. And this is the image that we just uploaded. Just that multer renamed it and it got rid of the extension. But if I go, I think if I copy this name and I go to my browser, and I just paste that here. Oh, it just tries to download it. Anyway, that's the next thing that we'll need to do is, right now it's just trying to download the image, but let me show you here. Like if I go to revealing Finder, that the image was uploaded, in fact. Revealing Finder, oh. Get rid of this. This is our image. It's just that because it doesn't have an extension, it doesn't show me like a thumbnail. But if I go to, let's see, if I double click it, it opens up. This is the image that I picked to upload. But the main point is that, you know, multer, we set up multer to upload images. And in fact, like at this point, we can upload any files. To upload only images, I'm gonna let you do like, just go on the multer documentation for how to do that. But you could also just do it without. At this point, we can upload any files. Now, any questions from here? Yes.
I don't need a chance that I can't use the domain install because there's some proxy issue. So I don't know if
Okay, just run it with Node for now, and we can check it after. But you'll need to make sure that then whenever you make changes to your server, you restart.
Right.
Yeah.
What's the difference between that and Node
NodeMon will check for changes in your files, and if it sees changes in your files, just rerun for you. It doesn't do that. Yeah. Yeah. Other questions?
Is that an image file or it's just a...
This console log that we're seeing here. So this is not really the file, right? This is an object representing the file. Because if we try to console log the file, what would a file look like sort of inside? Actually, I think I could show you. If we go to, let me open like here. Let's go to CD public images. So we have these two images, hello PNG and the one that we uploaded. This is binary data, meaning it's not text, it's not JSON. And it just looks like scrambled random things. If we do like, if we want to read one of these, if we do like cat hello, to try to read it, it's going to look like this. Basically, we're looking sort of at the inside of the image, what it's made of, basically, sort of. We're trying to read an image as if it was text, but it's not text. Some images do have some text at the top. I don't think this one does. Let's try the other one. Oh, this one is bigger. Anyway, like an image, if you try to read that as text, it just doesn't make any sense. And that's why we need to use like multer. So again, sort of like just to your questions right here, that the image that we saw, the console log, that's not really the image, it's an object describing the image. Yes. Now from here, once we uploaded the image, what we need to do is like in your database, what you're gonna save is just a URL to this image, basically, which is gonna be localhost /images / whatever your image name is. And that's what you're gonna save to the database as sort of like your URL. Yes? Let me check that.
So I guess we're locally storing images in our program itself. Oh, like to our multiple. No, I'm sure we'll get to that when we get to the front end. No, it's good. No, it's good. Already got a handful of ideas. It's involved.
Yeah, it doesn't actually have
No, NPM dev. Yeah, so it's npm run start :dev. Yeah, that's if you build start start :dev. No long dots.
Yeah, I built it, but I used command. So I was
See, that's why I think that notes that I was trying to build it. I figured I'd use this more than like just a build app. So I would be able to parse all those and forget. So if you compare this with what you guys built,
Yep.
Postman, if you send the file, the postman at point, postman is contact.
That's because I'm just not replying with anything. If I do here res.json message file uploaded, it's not gonna hang anymore. Cool. Any questions up until this point about like multer setting it up? Let's try to see like what happens if I don't specify like this, for instance. Let's say this is different. Try to send that same image. Actually, let's send another one. I'm gonna send this montrand that I have here. Send. Oh, do I have the server running? It's not running. Run start dev. Server running. Oh, something that I changed here is, well, that I added is just replying with a message saying res.json message file uploaded. This will make sure that, just replying with something so that Postman doesn't hang. If I send that, then I get an error, and this error is saying unexpected field. What this is just saying is I'm sending the file in this one, but multer was not expecting this field. The one that it was expecting was image, the one that we call image in here.
Sorry.
Yeah.
What is not following
Uh-huh.
is where is that file on Unreal in this case coming from?
I see. Yeah, so this file is like, that file is coming from my pictures file, from my pictures folder in my computer. And I want to sort of like upload it to my server.
What is the link between Postman? How does Postman knows where to look for it?
Oh, just because when I click here, like this is actually once we build it in React, it's gonna be a little bit more clear. But in here, when I select files, then I pick. The user is given the option to pick what file do you wanna upload.
Oh, so you're not in body. You're not in body.
Say that again.
In the Postman tab, you're not in body.
I am in body, but I'm also in form data.
Form.
And not only I'm not in form data, but I'm also here on the field that I'm sending. I'm on file. There are two texts on file.
Oh yeah, I was thinking
Yep. Then let's select Mondrian again. Now that once we have that, we send it, it uploaded, and our server is replying with this message, file uploaded. If we go back here, we see that now we have 3 files. One of these is the Mondrian, I think it's this one. Right, so the last thing that we need to do is, we don't really need to, but I like to keep the extensions in here, as well as the name. So to sort of provide a custom name, we just need to change something in here. Also, just remember that rec.file will have an object with the file that you sent, which is it's gonna look like this. This is rec.file. It has the original name, destination where it went, and the path where it was put. We're gonna use this path. This path will be what you will save to the database so that you can access the image later on for the post, for instance. Now, if I want to provide a name, if I want to keep the names, what we do is here. These options, this configuration options that we pass here as an object to multer, we need to pass in. We're just gonna pass them, but now they're gonna be in a slightly different way. So let me go back to the documentation. I'm gonna put this code like on GitHub once we're done, so you can have access to it, reference it. What we need to do is like set up something called like storage. This one, storage. Cool. So, and then we just do that as our options storage here. Okay. So here, just do an object here called storage. That's going to be equal to multer-disk storage to this object that we're passing to this storage. We need to pass in 2 functions: destination. Oh, I think that's, yeah, it's like this one we could, I think, let's see if destination is used to determine. I'm not sure if destination has to be, let's just pass it as it is in the documentation. I think this could be just the string, this same string. But right now here, the documentation is instructing us to do a function. File cb. That cb is just a callback that you have to call. And here we're just calling callback null and passing in this same name, this same destination basically. So the destination, and the other property that we need to say is file name. File name. It's going to be another function, rec file and callback. And this one is going to let us sort of pick what name do we want for the file, basically. And in here, what I want is sort of very similar to this one. On this example, in the documentation, they're using the field name, which in this case, our field name was, where is that? Image. And they're just doing the field name plus the date, basically. What time it was uploaded. And we're going to use something similar. Let's create a variable here called name. We're going to get back to that. Let's just call the callback with null and name. Now this name, what we're going to do is, let's use the original name. So let's put the date before, then a hyphen, and then the original name. That's going to let us have like multiple images with the same name. If anyone picks an image and they uploaded it and it has just happened to have the same name as some other image some other user uploaded, because they were uploaded at different times, they're going to be they're gonna end up having different names. So let's do date date.now. This gives you a timestamp of the current time. I'm just gonna concatenate that with a hyphen and file that original name. Note that original name we're accessing from the file object that we are seeing console log here, to which now we have access to. And I think that's it. Let's try this out. Now the last step here is now to multer, the option that we need to pass is storage. The storage that we created. Oops. No more destination because the destination is already being set up here in the storage. So let's see, our server is running. Now let's go, or any questions up until this point about the setup so far? To the disk storage function of multer, you need to pass in an object that has at least two properties. Here, we need to pass a destination property and a file name, and those properties must contain functions. In this case, they contain ES6 anonymous functions here. Those functions receive the request in case you want to use anything from it, the file, and it receives the callback for you to call. This is sort of like how the multer developer said, just call the callback once you're done, basically. And then we will know that that we're done. That's something that oftentimes you will see abbreviated to just CB. This is a callback that multer is passing. Now let's go back to here. Let's try to upload that same Mondrian, that image that I had, or whatever you had before. And then let's click on send. It says that the file was uploaded. Let's look it up on our app here. If I go up in this side here, now we see this. Now we have 4 files, and one of them is some numbers in mondrian.png. If we see that, that is our image. Now, these numbers that we see beforehand is a timestamp of that point in time thanks to date.now. Basically, this is the time in milliseconds, starting from I think 1970, when this image was uploaded, basically. And this guarantee us that we're gonna have like unique names, basically. Questions, comments? Now with this, now we have sort of like an image that we have our file name that has an extension. Then what we're gonna do is save this to the database, basically. Save this to the database, and let me show you here. Once I go back to here, I'm gonna go to images. I'm gonna paste the file name just to see that is accessible, and we got our image there that we uploaded. So this is basically how you can like set up your server to upload images to a folder in your backend. The missing step here now is just how to do this, how to send it not from Postman but from a React app, basically, or a website. Right. So now let's do this. Let's do. I want to have the JSON whenever the server receives an image. I want it to reply with the message file uploaded. I also wanted to reply with the image URL, with the image that was the sort of the location of that image. And then for that, let's do like a variable here. We'll call that image URL. And we saw here that when we are uploading the file, we get this rec.file thanks to multer, and that has information about the file that was uploaded. So from here, we can just pick this path property. This is the file that was uploaded. This path property, this is basically our URL now. So I'm going to do something like, the image URL is going to be http://localhost 3001 or plus rec.file that path. Something like this. I think, well, we could just leave it as a relative path. We don't need to include like a local host. We could include this sort of like in the front end. So this is one option, or we could just reply with this. Yeah, like we could add this part. Why I'm thinking that is because we don't know, like this is localhost because it's running on our computer, right? But once we deploy to Heroku, Heroku is going to give us a unique URL. In that case, like I think the only part will be the port we could change. So yeah, this doesn't really matter. But let's say here, I'm gonna say reply with image URL. Just be that image URL. Comma. Cool. Now let's look at let's test this with Postman one more time. Let's send in Mondrian again, and we get that. We get basically a URL. This is the URL that you will save to your database with that. Whoops. Where did I go? This is the URL that you will save to your data. You will save in your database on your post tables or whatever you want to call it. Let's see if I click on this. Right. Okay. Well, before there's a question in the back.
In the values, how'd you get the image to go in the value again?
I just helped Sergio with that. I'll do it one more time because I'm nice. In here, you need to make sure that you're on a post request, you're on body, you're on form data, and in here, when you hover over here, this is sort of like bad user experience, but when you hover over here, you have to click like, and here you'll get this drop down, text and file. You pick file, and then it's gonna give you a button to select a file. Now, here, so this URL, this URL has a problem. Who knows what the problem is that with this URL? If I copy this URL and I paste it on like the browser, it's giving me a 404. Cannot get that image. So this image, this URL has a problem that we need to fix.
Is there no public router? No.
Sort of along those lines. The public. You remember that I said we didn't need to specify public when we have the setup. When we have the setup here, this is sort of, this setup here is anything that is in public will just be available in the main route, sort of, right? So we don't need to specify public. So this URL will work, I think, if I remove the public and just leave /images, and we get our Mondrian again. So what we can do then is we just need to get rid of that public sort of at the beginning here of our rec. Where was that? In here, the rec file path, right? So we need to get rid of that slash public. How can we get rid of that? Turn it into an array, so slice it, and just leave out that. Also, there is a string method called replace. What we could do is do that replace, and this is a method that takes in two things. What do you want to replace with what? With what? So I want to replace whatever it says public with an empty string. It could be a slash public, so this is sort of like your preference, or I could just get rid of the slash here. So if I get rid of the slash here, if I leave this slash, then we have the problem that we're going to have duplicate slashes. So it could be leave the slash here and then get rid of it here. Try to see if there's one better than the other. I think it's the same thing. Let's just put this. I want to replace the slash public that we see in here. Say that again. Oh yes, because then we'll have this one as well. So yes, it will have to be. We want to replace all this part. Yeah, it does. It could be just adding them here or just removing it from here. Let's just do it like that. Public. This is gonna replace whatever you said slash public slash with an empty string, and we're just concatenating the result of that with this. Let's see if that worked. Let's upload the Mondrian, or just want more to change to vary a little bit. So this one. Upload. We got a success file upload. Oh, this is interesting. Wait, it still said. Okay, here it's just it's just public slash. I saw that we might have a problem with files that have spaces in their names, but we'll see. Let's pick this file. Oh, this file once again. Open. Send. So this one has spaces in the name. Let's see if this worked. If I go to like here and paste this. Oh, it still works. We get the image. If I go like to the browser and I change the URL now to the new one, space, we get the image. Cool. So it works with spaces as well. Yes.
So in the database you just save the URL.
In the database you just save the URL.
So in the file, all the images saved in that file.
All the images get just saved on the images folder in here.
When you open it together, do you want to ignore it?
Oh yes, that's a good question. Yes, when you create a repo for this project, you want to make sure that you ignore your public folder, because if not, then every time you're uploading files, those GitHub will keep track of them. Like it's telling me right now that those files have been modified and they're untracked. So yes, you want to ignore them, and you can do that in your backend. Oh, this is interesting. I don't think I initialized a Git repo here. Oh, I think I did. It's just that it's not in this folder. For ignoring files from Git, just like look into the .gitignore file. You can just add it there. Yes?
Did you put Two separate ones in the folder, or just one outside?
Oh no, you could just do it in the one outside. Yeah. You just need one dot ignore. I think here, if I want to ignore, like I want to ignore my public folder, I could do like dot git ignore public slash, and that is just gonna ignore it from git. If I only want to ignore like the images, I could just do images. And then git is going to ignore my images folder because I don't want to upload that to your repo. In fact, like once we deploy this to like Heroku, well, this is something I don't know how much space Heroku gives us, but more generally, like you upload files to a third service like AWS S3, or there are some others that just let you upload files. It's going to be like a similar process where you just send the file to their service and they handle it, they store it, and they give you back a URL. Cool. So that's on this end. This is all the Express setup that we need to do. Yes.
Super quick. Would we want to ignore that if we're working on seeding a database between the group? So we don't accidentally.
No, we can. Oh, I see what you're saying now.
You send everybody the same file.
Yeah, I see. Like what Douglas is saying. Well, like your images will need to be on all the computers if you want to see them. Well, like what you probably will have is you have sort of like your seed file will have some like sample data. You want to make sure that those you do share with your teammates. I wouldn't say through Git or GitHub. You just probably just send it as a zip file on Slack or something like that to say like, oh, you need to put these files in the images folder, you know, to be able for it to work correctly. Yeah, that's a good observation. Yeah, or Google Drive. Cool. So that's all the setup that we need to do here. Any final questions before we move on to the React side? Yes.
When I click on the link, my browser downloads the file. Is there any way to prevent that?
Do you know do you change the name to be that JPEG, or is the name, does the URL end in that JPEG or that PNG or that whatever? Because my browser was trying to download the image as well when it was when we didn't have the extension basically. But it doesn't really matter because once you use that URL in an image, like in an image element on the web, it's not gonna download it for the user. It's just gonna show it.
You have to correct the name.
Yeah, that's what we did here.
Gotta make sure the name has the extension.
But that's just sort of for us. That doesn't really matter. Extensions, when you say like .jpeg, that's for humans. The computer, it still looks internally to see how to access it. Cool. So that's that on this end. Let's move on to the React side. On React, go to front end, source. Let me get rid of all this stuff that I always get rid of, like some CSS here. I'm gonna get rid of the app test, get rid of index CSS. From here, I like to remove this, remove this. I'm gonna remove the logo, SVG. Remove the service worker, set up tests, and we are left just with this, I think. Yeah. From here, I'm just gonna leave the div, the main div. Cool. So we have sort of like only the bare minimum. I'm gonna leave my server running, and then going to the front end. See, I am in a folder. Front end. And here I'm just gonna run this app with npm start, the React side. Like what we're gonna do with React is we just need to make sure that we have a form that let us pick a file and just send that to our server. We're gonna do what we were doing with Postman just in React, which is sort of like not even in React, it's just the web. We got this error, app.js logo SVG. That's because I removed the logo. Yeah, so then I need to remove that. Cool. So here we can see again that our React is running on a server on that port on 3000. That's why we had to move to a different port. Did I save this? Yes. Cool. So we have an empty React app. For this demo, which we just need a form. So I'm gonna do form. Now to send a file, there is an input type file that we could use. So we're gonna do input type file. I think there is a way in which you could like also restrict to only image files in here. I don't remember exactly. You can look that up. Input type file, I think that's it. And maybe a submit button saying upload. Let's do input type submit. Oops. Value upload. Cool. So we have our form. Let me put this here to the side. And then we get this form. We get a form where by default it has a button that says choose file, and it lets you pick a file and open. And then it tells you the name of the file. And if you click it again, it's gonna let you pick another one. No, just replace it. And then we can hit upload, and this is trying to send the image, but we haven't told it how to handle that. That's what we're gonna do next. But here we get that. Now, just like with all input files, what are the two things that we add to all input files, or how do we handle the input files in React? Not input files, just input fields. Sure. A handler. And what's the other thing? There's one more thing, which is, yes, we need a handler function, an event listener function. Janesh? Well, we're gonna need to unsubmit for the form, but for the input field, just for the input field. An event listener and the value. Yeah, so actually, I think we're not gonna need the value for this one. But what we do need is the event listener. We need an event listener for all inputs. So I'm just gonna change this from a functional component to a class so that we can have a state. App extends react.component. And then this is going to be part of our render function. Let's just close this here. Close that at the end. Oh, and I forgot the opening one. Opening one here. And we have this. Now we have a component that can have state. Oh, there is. It turns out that now you don't even need a constructor or call super if you don't want to. You can just say like state. Not even this. Image URL. I don't remember exactly. Just start with an empty string. I don't remember exactly like when would you need the constructor and the super. I'll have to look more deeply into that. I think you only need the constructor mostly if you have like nested components, or when you have like a component that is expecting something from props, and those props are going to be used in its constructor basically. But in here, just we could initialize state just like that. When in doubt, just use the constructor and the super the same way. So we have that. Then let's have like handle file input function. Remember that all the event listeners get the event in its arguments. And for now, I'm just going to console log event.target. Actually, this is console.dir. Just because I want to, the event target, we know that it's going to be this input field when we pick the file. So just console.dir. And in here, in the input type file, we're going to do on change, just like as if it was a text input. On change, we want to invoke our handle file input function. Let's do maybe console log as well. File changed. Cool. So remember that the event target is the target of the event, wherever the event happened, where it occurred. And now let's try this. So let's open the developer tools here. Let me put them here to the bottom. Console. What's this? Oops. Cool. So let's pick a file. Express. Cool. And then we get the file change, and that's our console log, which is indicating that we attached the event handler correctly. And we get the input here. Now the input, right? Remember, that's the event target. The input where the event happened, and the input, as we see, we're using console.dir just because we want to inspect the input inside. If I do console log, it just shows me sort of like the HTML representation of the input, which is the same as nothing basically. Like it just shows me the input tag. But here, these are all the values that the input has. And one interesting in here is, wait, I think it's higher up. Well, if it had a value, wait, let's look at the value one. I don't think the value has anything, but let's try it. Value. Anyone sees the value? Is the first one? Oh, that's cool. Now this is interesting. It has like a path, but it says fake path. I've never seen this. It gives you like a fake path. So we can't really use this. This is sort of like saying where the path to the image is. And I think it gives us this. We're not going to use the value anyway, but it gives us this, I think, as a security measure, because then if a website could read what files you have, then it could be used for malicious activities. But from here, okay, so the value has something, it literally says fake path, and we didn't make this up. This is something that the developers built in. But here we see this one, this field called files. Files now has a file has sort of something like an array. It's actually a file list, and it has a length of 1, and the first one is our image, this one, express.js.png. It has like the last modified, what type of image it is. And this is our image, or this is an object representing our image. As we saw, like we can't really like console log the image because it will just look like random gibberish. But this is the location of our image. This is where we're gonna get it from. So what we're gonna do here is on our handle file input, we're gonna set the image to our state. So whenever it changes, we have it saved in state. So let's do this .set state. This .set state, and we're gonna do, let's call like image. It was like image file. Image file is going to be event.target.files, and the one that is at index 0. Because again, remember that files is a file list. It's an array-like data structure that is indexed as well. So we can do files at index 0. This is going to have our image. This is the image that we're going to send to our server with Axios once we hit the upload button. So that's that. Let's check if it's actually being set in our state. So let's go to, I'm going to get rid of this console log now, or the console.dir. Let's inspect our state in here with going to components, app. We have image URL. Oh, we didn't initialize like an image property. Let's initialize one. Image file is initialized to null. It's not gonna be a string, so that's why I don't initialize it to the empty string. Let's then go back here to our state app. Now we have our state image file null, an image URL. Let's pick a file, open, cool, and we get this. Now our image file has something. It has our image in our state, and it looks like this array buffer. This serves a little bit more. Type name. This is interesting. Yeah, but this is basically how we can get to the image. This is our image. Cool. I think this array buffer is sort of like a chunk of memory, raw chunk of memory. That's where sort of like the actual image is. And that is, those are, whatever is in that chunk of memory, that's the data that's going to be sent. Use that, yeah, if we read that chunk of memory as if it was text, it looks like random gibberish. We'll have to read that chunk of memory with an image program that can understand images. Cool, so we have that. Then we're setting the state. The next step is just when we hit upload, send it with Axios, and that will be it. Now, right now, we're refreshing the page. That's because we're not handling the form yet. So let's call it here like handle submit or something. Event, just abbreviate it to E. The first thing that we want to do is prevent the default so that it doesn't refresh. Prevent the default, and then we're going to need Axios, so we need to import Axios. I don't remember how to do it with fetch. It could do, but I mean the file upload, and you're probably going to be using Axios anyway. So if you do want to do it with fetch, you need to look at the documentation for sending the file. Now we do. Let's install Axios. I'm gonna kill the front end here. npm install Axios. And then I'm going to import axios here at the top while that is installing. Import axios from axios. And then here, what we're going to do is let's do a try catch. Let's console log, in case there is an error, let's just console log the error. And now here, we're going to do we oftentimes do like const response equal await axios dot post. Here we need to pick, we need to use the URL. What's the URL that this image is going to be sent to? In this case, HTTP ://localhost 3001 /upload. And you remember that as the second argument, we will send the data here, right? So we could do like, actually this is not how we ultimately will do it, but oftentimes just as the second argument, you send your JSON, right? Now, because here we're gonna send the file, we need to sort of wrap that file in a form object. We can't just send it like that. And to do that, we need to use an object called the form data object. We're gonna use this, and you can read more about it. Form. Right. So like for the most part, we have just been sending JSON data, which is like you just pass in an object to Axios, and it knows how to handle JSON immediately. But for sending a file, we need to wrap it in a form data, because remember that now our form, we're sending a multi-part form. We're not sending just plain text. Now we just need to create a form data object. Let's call it like const data. It's going to be equal to new form data. Like, and we need to do this just because we're taking full control over the form submission process, right? We have an event listener listening for this on submit, and we prevent the default. We wouldn't need to do this if we sort of do it the old school, which is just letting the form do its default behavior. But we'll need to like change, like specify where the form is gonna go in the form element and some other stuff. So form data, just like that. This is something abbreviated to FD for form data. And then to data, what you need to do is data.append. It's a method on the form data object. And to this object, to the append function, we need to pass two things. One is the field name, that is going to be the field name and the data, basically. And here, the field name is going to be just image. This is the field name that we picked. And the second one is going to be the data that we want. And that data is going to be this .state image file. Just like this. And now this data I will send here.
That's the way, but there's no async.
Oh, thank you. Yes, React will complain if I don't have async, so let's do async here. And you could do this on another function, right? Like a function called upload file, and you just call it in here in the handle submit. I'm just doing it straight here because it's a small function. And then after that, let's just console log res.data. That rest for response that Axios gives us. And now, since we know how to destructure, we can just destructure the data here with like that. This structure, the data property, that's the one we're interested in. We could do it like that, but I'm just gonna do it the whole way, rest. Cool. I think if we did this correctly, this should work. The last step here is just to have an unsubmit on the form with this that handles submit. Man, let's try this out. Let's run the React app, pm start. Cool, I guess let's pick a file. Let's pick this one. Let's hit upload. Oh, we got some errors. Access has been blocked by course. Right, so this is again a security measure that the web, or actually browsers, decided to implement. Which is not allowing a website to access resources from other websites, basically from other domains. So we need to install course on our server to indicate to the browser that it's fine to access resources from this server, basically. So we need to go to our server. We need to do not ls. Let's go back to our main backend. We are in here in the backend folder. Let's do npm install course. And I'm gonna have to go to app.js in the backend, app.js in the backend, and just set it up here. Import it, course, importing course, and then just using course.use, like here, app.use course. Cross-origin resource sharing. Now this is adding, like if we go to like the details, course is just adding a header on the request, actually on the response, that says it's fine to access resources from this domain. So I think that should be it. If we start the server, run start dev. Let's go back here. Let's clear that. Pick Express.js again. Upload. Cool. I think it went well. Now we get a response. We didn't get a 404. If we access this URL, we should see our image. Cool. That's our image. And then this is how then you will send files to your server. You just store the URL and just use the URL. In fact, let's do that as the last thing. Let's just use the URL that we just got from uploading our file. So in here, let's set the state. Let's set the state. This dot set state. We said like here. Let's put the image URL here. So image URL is going to be rest.data dot. Oh, I think I forgot what properties I gave. Just image URL. This is rest.data. This is the object that we got back from our server. So just image URL. Cool. So that is going to save the URL to like our state. And then we can use that URL in like an image element. And let's go here, sort of like, let's do an image here, whose source is going to be this dot state dot image URL alt, well, just random. I will need to, yeah, like if I want to make this nicer, I will need to write like a condition saying if there is no image URL, don't show anything, because right now it's gonna show like a broken image, like that. It shows you like, it shows me that it shows me basically the alt text of the image, because as we start off, we have an empty string as the URL. That's not a valid URL. So you could have like an if statement to check if there is a URL, show the image, otherwise don't show anything. Let's try it again. Let's pick a file, let's pick this one. We got that, hit upload, and we got our image that was uploaded to our server, and we read the URL straight from there. Again, this is the URL that you will save to your database. That's it. That's it for handling like the file upload. Questions? Yes.
Can you go back and approach? I just want to see the handle submit.
Yes.
The state.
Oh, and I wanted to show you. I wanted to show you the data. So if we go like here with Postman, Postman let us like inspect the data, like I think of the request. If I go to like his code and I go to, oh, did they remove it? HTTP. Yeah. So this is what a form. This is like what the multi-part form data encoding looks like. It has, yeah, like it has this information saying what type of data you're sending, and it has the name of the field that I picked, has the file name, and it just has data here. You see, like this is again Postman saying, you know, this is binary data. I don't want to show you all that because it's just random if you try to show it as text. This is Postman just saying there is some binary data here. That's what this looks like. If we have like, and this is what the request will look like. If we have on this one, which is one of the formats we were sending data on, like name, CD, NYC, and I go to code. This is what the data looks like. This is URL encoded. The data is encoded as a URL where there are key value pairs and so on. When you're sending like JSON, well, most of the time we were using this one, and when you're sending JSON, it will be something like this. Name. Oh yes, I'll need quotes around it here too, because this is JSON, the string. And if I go to code now, this is what the data will look like. This is what the request will look like. And our servers, so far, they're able to understand JSON with the JSON body parser, right? That we have to install. If we want to install, we can install, or just use the built-in one. And they're able to use form URL encoded, like this other format, thanks to this here. If we go to app, This is the one that is going to let our server understand JSON. That is data like this. That is a request that looks like this. Is able to understand form URL encoded, which is data that looks like this, where it's basically the same data, just in a different encoding, in a different format. That is able to do that thanks to this line. If we remove that line, then our server doesn't know how to process that. It's able to understand that JSON with this one, URL encoded with this one, multi-part form data, which is this other format. Which one? Form data code. It's able to understand multi-part form data, which is sort of this format for binary data, thanks to multer. The multer setup that we did in here, the upload, the storage. And note that also multer, as opposed to like JSON, the JSON parser or the URL encoded parser, we use multer on a route by route basis. Basically, we don't just set up multer in the global sort of. We use multer here, like in the upload single image part. Right. We just sort of, well, I guess we do some setup here, which is just like initializing the storage and initializing this upload variable. But we use multer here as upload single image. And here is, if this goes well, this is just the way that Express works. If a middleware goes well, it just gets passed, the request gets passed to the next middleware. In this case, if this goes well, our request gets passed to this one. On this other middleware is where you will save that URL basically to your database basically. Cool. Any final questions, comments? Mm-hmm.
Two super quick ones. When you're creating the form, you're putting that image directly on the site.
When we're creating the form, let me go back to the code. In here.
The
form.
It was image URL. Okay, so I got that right.
This is so that
an image file. The other was you launched the front end with just npm start, or was that a different?
Yeah, the front end just npm start.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. So yeah,
that's it. Like if you want to show like you could just Google like how to show a preview of the image. If you want to show a preview of the image before it's uploaded, that's always a good thing. As well as you could also Google how to just allow only image uploads instead of any file. Because at this point, I can upload a Word document if I wanted to. And it will get saved to the image folders. Cool, so let me know if there's any more questions later on. I'm going to upload this code to a repo and then share it out with you. I think that's it. Just assembling your groups, start looking at the README, start discussing the project. And you have to get signed off before you can start coding. Which same format as last time, making sure that you are ready to go. Just tag us on a Trello card. If you're ready to go, we're just gonna give you the thumbs up and you're ready to rock and roll. Cool. Let's get working.